Voices serves as the megaphone for individuals who have endured transformational change. By highlighting trials and triumphs, our desire is to create a safe space for pivotal conversations, which in turn will deepen the story and provoke hope for you, our listeners. As you may know, change is never easy, but it is inevitable. You are not alone in what you're facing. Your transformation is possible, purposeful, and now. And here's Erin Wiggum, founder and managing director of New You, with this week's guest.
Hello and welcome to another edition of New Voices. My name is Erin Wiggum. I am your host. I'm also the managing director of New You. New You is a way for individuals to imagine, discover, and actualize a 2.0 version of yourself. We're really glad for the things that we're doing right now, activating communities. New Voices is a way for individuals who have endured transformational or pivotal experiences to come and tell their story with us. So we have a wonderful guest today who's going to share her story with us. She is very special to me. She is, and we're going to find out all of that in a minute, but very special to me. She is very strong. I know her to be very strong, very intuitive. She has amazing intuition. And, what I've also known her to be throughout my lifetime is a constant contributor. She adds value wherever whatever she puts her hands to, wherever her feet are. She adds value to that. And I am so grateful and honored to call her sister. She's my blood sister. And she also is almost like a second mom to me, taught me so many things as a child and really kind of, did the big sister thing, how big sisters should do. She did all of that for me. And so this is really a treat for me to spend this time engaging my sister in our professional realm. And so I bring to you none other than the dynamic, the unmatched, the fearless Dionna Rojas, founder of Dionna Rojas Inc. Welcome, Dionna.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. And listen, I'm definitely going to have to replay this 1,000 times over of all that sweet stuff you just said.
Okay. Just don't use it as any type of blackmail or anything.
Absolutely
okay?
not. Nope. Just for encouragement.
Okay. Okay. Good. So we start every interview, every discussion with this simple question. What is the Dionna Rojas story? So you can start wherever you like.
Okay. So I'll quickly go into my origin. I'm a native Pittsburgher, lived here all my life. And originally started on the north side of Pittsburgh. I am the proud three of us. There's three of us, Erin, myself, and we have a sibling in the middle, Sheree. We're the proud children of Martin and Donna Wiggum, two young people who came together. And I came and was a bit of a surprise for them. And so I had my starts that's where my start came from. My start came from being the blessing to two young people who really were young themselves and didn't know what they were going to do, right? And because of that, we did a lot of growing up together. My mom and I, I think back to when I was younger, sometimes it felt almost sibling-like, but I'll get into that a little bit later, but it almost felt sibling-like sometimes as I was developing and growing because she too was developing and growing. And so my origin came from the east side of Pittsburgh, meeting the north side of Pittsburgh. And they created a family, created a life together. And I had the opportunity to be under their care. And my childhood was I didn't realize how fortunate I was until I got much older. Of course, anybody who's a kid, you feel like, well, so-and-so's doing it better. They have this, they have that. And I didn't realize how rich and how blessed we were until I got older, until I became an adult. But very humble beginnings. I can still remember my grandma before my parents got married. I remember her duplex. I remember what it looked like. I remember once my parents got married, going over, staying the weekends over there, and it would be a group of us, and we're digging in the frosting can in the refrigerator, eating frosting off a spoon. And then that was that side of the family and part of my beginnings, and that was humble. And unfortunately, I lost my maternal grandma young. She was 8. I mean, I'm sorry, I was 8 when she died very young in her early 40s. But I then had the rich experience of also having both grandparents in my life on my father's side, on the paternal side. And remember staying weekends, staying over, staying up late, just being very well cared for. So family life was great. Like, it was great. It definitely, parents kept me safe. I was a bit of what was explained to me when I was younger, I was a bit of a bossy kid. That's what they would call it. I call it leadership skills were probably.
Well,
I think leadership was coming out early on, and nobody knew what to do with it. And you got to remember, I grew up with my parents. And so on some level, maybe a little bit parentified because I had a teenage mom. And so maybe some things I was kind of empowered to hear or say that sometimes when back then they would say kids are to be seen and not heard. I was able to say some things at different times as well. And so that probably gave me a little bit more confidence in certain settings to speak up when other kids maybe couldn't speak up. But it was a rich childhood. Elementary school, then once school got into play, that was a little bit tough. But all in all, the upbringing was I have fond memories of my childhood. Sled riding, I was in the Girl Scouts. True story, I was in the Girl Scouts from Brownie all the way up to cadets. I think I stopped at like age 12. So selling Girl Scout cookies, I think age 12 or 13. When boys came into play, Girl Scouts kind of got shelved.
Got it.
But yeah.
So a very traditional kind of middle America type upbringing.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Okay. What type of schools? Private school, public school? How did you fare through that?
I was originally in a public school, and back then you had community-based schools, and so you live next door to your friend, you walk to school together, and so I had that experience up until 8th grade. 8th grade was a rough year for me. A lot of challenges in my adolescence, and a lot of pushback, and a lot of anger. Going through my early stages of puberty, I was angry about a lot, and that ended up in me being in a space where I tried to self-harm myself, and I found myself on a psych ward for a week for juveniles because I attempted, it was a very weak attempt, but I attempted in acting out to take my life. And I tell you, day one there, I knew that I was not trying to take my life, and I knew that I did not belong there. But I had to stay the course, and I just thank God that I never thought to do it again or to act out in that way again. But it was definitely, that was probably like one of the biggest things in my challenges in my growing up, was that rough time of transitioning in adolescence, because I was never the cool kid. I was never the brightest. I was always the one kind of in the middle. I had friends that were in gifted programs, but I also hung out with the bullies sometimes. So I kind of didn't really have my own, right? But, and so it was just a confusing time and trying to figure out who I was and understanding my value and my worth. I didn't, for as fortunate as I was, I never felt special. And so it was hard for me to try to figure out how to fit in to feel special or connected.
That's good. So, okay, so that's a great realization. What, I got
Mhm.
two questions in my head at the
Uh-huh.
same time. The one question is, when did you come to the realization? When did this epiphany happen, or when did you finally understand what you've just put into words just now about not feeling special? I had all of access to all these different groups, but I didn't have my tribe. I didn't feel valued or seen in a particular way that made me feel special. When did you come to that realization?
To be honest, it wasn't until my mid 40s, literally my mid 40s.
Wow.
Because even in a workplace setting, I was always trying to prove something to somebody else, for somebody else,
Okay.
seeking
Yeah.
validation, not needing validation to do something, but still
Yeah.
desiring
But just
to
seeking it.
hear it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until something about your 40s is just like, you know what? Enough is enough.
Listen, you
Enough is enough. And then you recognize that, hey, everybody else is struggling too. And so
yeah.
that's when I had my epiphany. It was kind of like, yeah, I don't want to go into my next season in life in that
Yeah.
space.
40 is, it's just something about 40 and even the decade of your 40s that is really 40 in particular is a year of
Yes, it
reckoning.
is.
Like, you find out what you are and what
Yep.
you're not at
Yep.
40. And even your mortality, you feel your mortality in your
Yep.
bones. You feel it when you wake up in the morning. You get a weird ache that, where did this
Mm-hmm.
come from? And you don't know what it is, and it may just go away. It was
Yeah.
nothing. You're
Yeah.
40.
Yeah. You
It's
sit
like,
up and you're on the edge of the bed a little bit longer. You don't just bounce out the bed,
yes.
and you
Yeah,
actually recognize you actually got a lot of life behind you, and you're not quite sure
correct.
how much more you
Yeah.
have ahead of you. Right. And so
Yeah. Yep.
not to make it morbid, but you're kind of recognizing just how precious and valuable time is.
Absolutely. Yes. It has a
Mm-hmm.
different, a much different much different
Yeah.
value when you hit 40 than any other time before that. I promise you that. Okay, and then the other question I was going to ask you around was around uh do you ever feel like you found your tribe, or do you ever feel like you found your lane in life, in groups, in activities? Like, when did you actually find your
So
lane or your
here's the
tribe?
thing. Your tribe could be there all the time. It just might not be as shiny as the person that you're looking at. So
Right. Yeah. I
I
want to
want to
be in
be in
that
that
tribe, but
tribe
your
over
tribe's right
there.
here.
And so what
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
recognized was, do I really want to be over there? Not really,
Right.
and so
Not
my
really. They got their problems over
exactly.
there.
And so what I found was,
Yeah.
who are the people that I have the same common interest in? We have
There you
share the
go.
same values. I'm married.
Yeah.
I've been married over 20 years now. I've been a mom for 31
Mm-hmm.
years. I'm a grandma now. And so
Mm-hmm.
my tribe are people who respect that. They value
There you
that.
go.
They know I'm a
Mm-hmm.
woman of faith, of great faith. I
Mm-hmm.
don't take my Christianity off. And so my
Mm-hmm.
tribe isn't what I found, and I did, to answer your question, I did find my tribe. What I realized was my tribe
Mm-hmm.
was always there. I
Yeah.
thought it needed to look a certain way. You need to you see
There
people,
you
let's
go.
do the girls trip and let's go this. And
Mm-hmm.
I have people that I share time with, but to
Mm-hmm.
be honest with you, Aaron, when I've been a mom since I was 19. And so I didn't have time to have a tribe.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I lost a lot of that part of my development because I
Mm-hmm.
chose to
Mm.
go head in and play the martyr and do work
Yeah.
and have the baby, right? And so
Yeah.
my tribe, I'm the youngest one in the workplace and many of my teams I work with. So I
Yeah.
was still, once again, an outsider, right? And so it wasn't until
Mm-hmm.
actually when my second born, once I was married, my second born,
Mm-hmm.
when he started school, that's when I started to find my tribe, when he started preschool. because
Got
it
it.
was a tribe of
Yeah.
moms and we were in the same stage of life. But even that was a little challenging because I was the only one who had someone who was 12 years older than the stage.
Older,
And
right?
so I
Yeah.
was a vet.
Yeah. They were just
Right.
getting
I was a
started.
vet,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it was like I'm doing this all over again. And so it was a little bit
Yeah.
unique. I feel like now we've all caught up to each other.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go back to, before you were talking about the episode that happened in 8th grade. All right. And then you segue, you go through your high school years. Now you're a teen mom. Okay. You said 19, right? And so what was the maturation process like, or what was your experience like giving that you're now automatically a mom at 19, like as you're still developing, as you still have aspirations? And let me take a step back. Let me frame this question the right way. So given that I have inside knowledge, we grew up in the same house and whatnot. I remember, my big sister, she was the dance champion of the house. And we would wake up Saturday mornings and they would have Video Soul or one of the video things on, and her and my sister would have dance competitions. And when we got up in the morning on Saturdays, she was the one who gave out the chores, who's going to do what, and inspect it to see if it was done right, all that type of stuff. And so, but one of the things that really sticks with me about that developmental period is, the aspirations you had in watching A Different World. Bill Cosby's A Different World, and how you wanted to go on to, a HBCU. You wanted to pledge one of the sororities. You had aspirations to go, and at one point it was into OT and PT. And so you had all these different things and plans. And I remember I was paying attention. Yeah. And so you have all these aspirations while you are you were a candy striper. You worked hard at the school for the blind, right? No, she had a job as long as I can remember, right? She been working, and sometimes working multiple jobs, babysitting, doing all kind of stuff, because she was the oldest one of most of the people, my family's friends. She was the oldest child of most of their friends, so she would babysit all the kids in the neighborhood, whatever. My point is this: what does that feel like when you're cutting against the wave and you have the pressure of holding your head up, you're facing life, you're making some good decisions, some bad decisions, and you're remaining faithful to the work that you're doing, but you're navigating and you don't really have much of a blueprint in front of you. Not to say our parents wasn't a blueprint. That's not the point that I'm making. I'm saying in your age group, in your like you're kind of leading the charge for a generation of us, right? What does that feel? Can you just speak to that pressure?
So first, let me just first say, internally, there's a lot of shame and judgment. You're judging yourself. You feel judged by others. You're probably your toughest critic. It was rough. I did a monologue 2 years ago with a local group. They put on a monologue for moms, and it was kind of an apology letter to my daughter, because her first 5 years of life was toxic. To be honest, I don't even remember half of the things because I was so angry with myself, and I wasn't angry that I kept her, and I wasn't angry that she was my baby. I loved her, but I knew I wasn't equipped, and that was not what the goal, the dream was. Like, I imagined me in a big, beautiful house with my degrees, and I'm able to offer her all these things. And here I am in my parents' home. I'm not trying to leave the comforts of this, right? And so I felt stuck. And a lot of my friends went on to college, and we're in a different space. And so, I lost friendships. Like, I've gotten back in touch with people over the years, but we disconnected, and it made sense because 19, you should be on a college campus and finding out who you are. It does not. I didn't have a lot of progression in that. That I feel like it took a long time for me to figure out who I was because I had the responsibilities of caring for, and so it was almost like a split in my development. So there was a delay emotionally. It was like I became stagnant. Even with, I knew all the right things to do, to keep a job, to make sure there's support for her, to make sure that the tangibles, the ancillary things were provided. But what really stood out to me is when I became a mom for the second time at 31, she recognized the difference and verbalized it.
The difference.
And so I wish I could have a clearer answer for you, but I could tell you what I felt. I felt alone. I felt isolated, though I was surrounded by everybody. I had, everybody, you guys were very supportive. She didn't want for nothing. I didn't want for anything, but to your point, that was not the plan. That was not what I envisioned for my life. And so it literally took me, probably like 26 till I was like 26. I remember mom took me to dinner for my 25th and I couldn't keep it together. I just kept crying the whole dinner. And she was like, what's the matter? And I said, I feel like such a failure. I feel like such a failure. Some girls can go to college and they can do college and parent. I didn't have that capacity. I couldn't work, go to school and, take care of my child. And so it was, I had to make some choices. I don't regret any of the choices I made. I'm happy with the choices I made because it did help me become who I am, but it was a rough road. It was a rough road. That was probably one of the most challenging times in my life. I'm just grateful that, I was able to work on some things with myself in order to work on some things with my daughter so that we're very close now. And that's what was. So here's the thing. My ambition was to be the best in whatever space business wise, whether it was corporate, whether it was at a hospital administration. I wanted to be the best. And I'm still very competitive. I want to be the best.
Yeah.
Mom life gifted me the humility to understand that there's many ambitions you can have. And a good friend of mine was the one who shared with me. She said, do you understand? One day I was griping about, the pressures of being a single mom. And she said, that's a ministry. Mother is a ministry. Like that's a gift. And I didn't realize the gift I had. And I never forget, Ashley is when she went to kindergarten. I dropped her off. She had her little glasses, dropped her off at the Ellis School for Girls and left her with her little quiet self. And I walked to the bus stop to catch the bus to work and I bawled the whole way to work because it hit me. I have this beautiful gift and I need to do better. And from that point on, I had promised God and I promised myself I was going to be a better mom. I was going to stop being angry and be the best mom I could be.
You talk about the seasons of motherhood. All right. Your first season, teen mom, unexpected, right? Your second season with full expectation of motherhood and, married, a little bit older. You got 12 years of mothering under your belt. And phase two, what did you find? What did you appreciate about season one that you carried into season two? Because it sounds like you were very hard on season one, right? But what did you appreciate about season one that you were able to bring into season two?
What I appreciated I appreciated a lot about season one. I appreciated the resilience. I felt like I was stretched, but it was a good stretching. I probably became one
Okay.
of the most resourceful people still call me today. I became one of the most resourceful people ever because I wanted my child to have the best. And so though I could not do it through how the plan was envisioned, I found that, oh, you know what? There's other ways to do things to get your
Yeah.
child into positions that you would have wanted to offer had you did it a different way. And so I had, like I said, I had no regrets about digging into that. And even in the workspace, like I had positions and opportunities where I met some really great people, and I was able to learn in a non-traditional setting. A lot of things, a lot of people, I would say probably 8 years before I even got my degree, they thought I was already degree because of the level of training and the level of opportunities to practice, a skill set that some I already had and some I developed. So that was a season of like a lot of seed planting and a lot of experimentation with figuring out who I was professionally as a person, as a mother, and learning from my mistakes. Like, I don't want to live with regret. And when I do find that I'm doing something wrong, let me figure out what that is. And I can't figure it out unless I have a conversation with my child. And so I was always open to having a conversation with her and getting feedback. And she had no problem giving me the feedback of what she felt could be done differently. Season two, it was still challenging because we're blending the family, and I never had, I co-parented, but it was like family co-parenting with me and her dad because we both were young. Season two, it's just me and my husband, and that's who set the rules, and that's who is the more consistent close quarters co-parenting. So I had to really share a little bit more decision making. So it was a learning experience, and I added 2 babies in that second season. They're 2 years apart, the second and third one, and so it was there was a lot of learning to do, blending this child that's come with me. So I'm already bringing a family setup in there to my husband who had no children, and I feel like we did it in such a unique way. One of the things, like we said, there was not going to be any stepdad, stepdaughter. She was his Iha. That was his daughter. That's what he called her, Iha. Like, once we got married, that was his Iha. He explained to her, I don't want to take your dad's place, but to me, you're my daughter as well. And she called him Poppy. And thank God he's Spanish is his language, because she was able to call him dad in an affectionate way. And that's her Poppy. And they've been that way. So what I learned from there, from the second season, was the youngest is on the spectrum. And so I had to learn, because I've worked in the disability community. It's very different when it hits you at home. And so I had to learn
at home
how to not hover. And I feel like the first season I planted seeds. The second season I grew in my faith, because there was so much going on. I had Pampers, pads, and pull-ups all in one session. And so I couldn't navigate all that. And I'm partnering. I have a partner who's committed to me. So it was a lot to juggle. It was a huge transition. Again, no regrets, a lot of growing up to do. And that's where I probably, in the second season, I started learning about humility. You know, I don't know all the answers. I'm not perfect. I do need support. So I started to learn how to be a little bit more humble and more vulnerable.
Tell me a time in your life, and I ask every guest this question. Tell me a time in your life when you had to hold on to hope. What were the ingredients of that moment? And then what was the outcome?
So it was 2011. and I was getting set to get ready. I was a volunteer in our church to run. We had a evening midweek kids group, and I was getting set to go run the group and take the kids with me. And our mother had maybe a few months prior had a severe break in her brain, her vessel, her blood vessel. And so the neurosurgeon had told us all to get examined, get a checkup, get an MRI and an MRA, because our grandma, our maternal grandma, had said earlier in this interview she passed when I was 8. And so she had passed from complications of aneurysm, and our mother here, she just had one. Our grandma was 42, our mother was 52. And so they wanted to make sure there wasn't anything genetically. We were preconditioned. And so I went and got the test done. And that night I'm going to go leave. My doctor calls and she says, Dionna, there's good news and there's some bad news. She said, the good news is your vessels are strong. There's no breaks or anything like that. The bad news is we see lesions and we need you to go in for some testing. And so she ran off a list.
Lesions on your brain.
Lesions on my brain. So,
on your brain, okay.
So she said it could be Lyme disease, rheumatoid arthritis, MS, or lupus. None of that sounds good. The boys were young. Yeah. And so, let me see, Gabe's 2007. So he was 4, Felipe was maybe 6. I'm trying to keep from breaking down in front of them. Philip's at work. And I didn't know what to do, and tears just start coming down my face because all I could see, none of those diseases kill you, but they're debilitating. And I'm thinking, I'm not even 40 yet. Like, I have kids, I have babies. Like, I just can't, and I want to be able to spend time with my husband when the kids grow. Like, it took everything out of me. And, I grieved for a little bit, had the conversation with my husband about it. And we went for more testing, and they had to test the thoracic. So they tested my spine, and there were lesions on my spine as well. Here's what the beauty was. So I started on a medication regimen. My husband and my daughter had to get trained to give me injections. And they were making me sick. And I thought, this doesn't make sense to me. This does not make sense to me. And so my bossy self, what I said was, I was driving fine. I was doing fine. I don't have any disability. Why am I taking something out of fear? Now, let me just, a disclaimer, anybody listening to this, if you need to take something, I'm not telling you not to do it. But for me, my kidneys were bothering me. I was sick for days after getting the shot. And so I prayed about it. And I told my husband, I can't take this anymore. And so I'm coming off this medicine. This was one of the few that you can actually take yourself off of. And so I had an appointment with my neurologist, and I told him that I was going to discontinue using the medication. He wasn't too happy about it, but that's okay. I said, I'm a woman of faith, and my health is in God's hands. And I wasn't having a problem before, and I'm having a problem now, and I have to listen to my body. And so that happened. I stopped, no medication. So I was probably taking about 6 months, 9 months. Fast forward to the year coming out of COVID. So almost 10 years later, maybe a little over.
This is with no medicine. 10 years.
Never had an exacerbation. Okay. Every time I would go see neurologists, they're like, your lesions aren't active, but I've never lost any ability, never been hospitalized.
Okay.
My second neurologist that I had for a while, he had left to another state for a practice. And so I go to the MS clinic at McGee Hospital in Pittsburgh. And the current doctor.
So the diagnosis was MS?
I'm sorry. Yes, the diagnosis was MS. And so my current neurologist, he did this very intense, thorough investigation. All my records, had me go back and do more MRIs. And he said, since your diagnosis, we have found there's a group of people, and I can't remember if you said 10 or 15% of people who never have exacerbations. And that group, we have put them in a group called, we give them a diagnosis of RIS, which is radiological isolated syndrome. And basically, it's like a benign form of MS. It's when the disease never progresses and they don't know why. I know why it didn't progress.
Right.
I know why it
Yeah.
didn't. And I said, thank you, God, that in that instance, my faith felt real strong that I needed to do that and stop. And I did. And I don't know how healthy I would have felt had I kept taking something that was bothering my kidneys. But what I do know is I have been medicine free since that year. So,
Wow.
Yeah, so that was very helpful. And anytime I could share my story with someone, I always share it with them, again, with the disclaimer that you have to, follow what your doctor is telling you. But, if you have faith and hope, believe what your body's telling you to,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I remember even as a kid, I grew up with asthma, and I was taking these pills every day, and, mom was crushing them up, putting them in applesauce and all this, and then, our parents go, they start cleaning the house. They lift up the couch cushions and see all the pills in there. I've been hiding the pills. I stopped taking them. Right. And then, dad comes to me, and he's ready to whoop me. He's all fired up. He's like, I'm paying for these prescriptions. I'm all here working, putting this money, and you ain't taking these pills, and I said, I was probably 6, 8 years old, maybe 8 years old. And I said, you told me to believe, and now I believe. And you said believe. If I believe, then why am I taking it? And so then that, and that's the one time that logic kicked in, and I didn't get the whooping anyway, right? That was the one time I got one shot at it, right? And so then the doctor said, they called a doctor, and the doctor says, well, look, he ain't been taking it,
and he's fine.
So he's all right. He's all right. And you know what? I've never taken any medication for asthma since that day. And so, like you said, for other people, you do what you do what you got to do, right? But as a believer, as a Christian, my hope is built on nothing less, and so I it doesn't mean I don't take medicine when I'm, my head hurts. I take some Tylenol, but there's also a place where your faith kicks in, and you do what you feel led to do. And so that's a beautiful story of like how you held on to hope throughout that time, and even 10 years of not knowing that this illness was benign. It's still there's still this reassurance that kind of happens over time, and once you see, it kind of breathes a second wind into your whole lived existence, and out of that is then birthed things like your book, Alignment. So that's a perfect segue, right? Let's talk about your book, your journal that you've created. What was the impetus, and how does this, what we've shared over the last 30 minutes or so, how does that inform or inspire the work that you've created?
So I've always been a family's system, even when I first started off. Well, like you said, even babysitting, I'm always working in some capacity with family, right? And so what I have always realized is that in order to help the kids, you got to help the parents, because that's who has the most influence and has the control and the resources. And so as I'm working professionally, but also working out my own walk with Christ, what kept coming back to me was motherhood. The impact of my motherhood experience, the impact of my relationship with my mother, with other women who were like mother figures to me, listening to other people have a conversation. Probably the last, 5-6 years, I've gotten even more focused into the motherhood space. And I think some of it is because a lot of the experiences I have been able to come through, and I've always encouraged people. And so I wanted to be an encouragement. And one of the things that I was praying about and God kind of just firmed up for me was that talk to the women who are just like you, just like me in the aspect that they've always worked in the marketplace and always have been a mom too. You don't get a break. Somebody had a video and they were talking about, they call it the invisible labor. When you're at work, but you're getting emails from your kids' school or you're setting doctor's appointments. And not to say that dads don't do that. I mean, parents do it, period. But it typically still, you have more women more moms who will be the one who take lead in that. And we do it so well. Claire Huxtable said one time on the Cosby Show, I do it so well that you don't even realize what I'm doing. That's how well I'm doing it. Right. And I thought we need something to find hope and encouragement with. And I wanted to do something that was an encouragement. And I know the Word of God always encourages me. And it always helps me when I'm having a rough time. But I didn't want it to be something where it was preachy. Because when you're stressed and you're going through, you just need to know that someone else has been through, they got through it, and hear how they got through it. And it's up to you if you want to see what that's about, right? And so I thought about it, and I was blogging for years. I would blog off and on. And a lot of what I blogged about was just my life experiences. I'm always trying to encourage, because I'm like, I can't be the only one going through this. And the alignment is called Alignment, Reflections on Motherhood, Clarity, and Purpose. It's really just a combination of different blogs I've written over the years that still make sense and are relevant now, different experiences that I've gone through. And I was nervous. I'm not the strongest writer. I'm a kinesthetic learner. I am not the most, I'm a very smart person, but definitely probably would have been more trade school versus academics writing papers. But creatively, I could always write my story. And I'm not afraid to share it. And so I shared it, and it's a devotional. Even, this is a copy of it. Even the size of it, it's a 5x8 because I don't like big clunky books. It's literally like 80 pages. And in that 80 page, you have lines to jot down your thoughts. There's a prayer after each chapter. And it's literally me just sharing with you how God showed up, taught me some lessons, showed me some things. The first chapter is about balance. And though it's called Mastering Balance, the art of mastering balance, the book is called Alignment because my opinion, balance is not, it's almost like control. It's not real, but alignment is. And what I found on all these different seasons of motherhood, different seasons in life, is when I was not aligned with what God was telling me or leading me, that's typically when I would find myself in difficult situations. But as long as I was aligned and close to what he was telling me and leading me to do, I always had a peace, even though it didn't mean it wasn't tough, but I had a peace even when it was tough. And so alignment was what I came up with.
Raise it up a little bit more. Here you go. Turn it to the side.
It's book one.
There you go.
So this is the series, Treasure You series. This is book one. This is the devotional book. I'm finishing up the prayer journal now that will go with it. And then the actual book will be out in May of 2025.
Okay. Yeah. Wonderful. Congratulations on that. That's such a huge accomplishment. And I know that there's a lot of people who are writing now, and that's a popular thing. But until you get your voice in the earth and you actually get your ideas chronicled, like it's a huge accomplishment to actually follow through on it. see it to the end, right? And so kudos and congratulations to
Thank
you
you. Thank you.
for doing that. That's powerful. What's a call to action? Give our listeners a call to action, and then also your social handles. How can people
Sure,
reach you?
absolutely. What I would really like for the listeners to do is understand that you have value. I don't care what season in life you're in. I don't care if you're a young adult. I don't care if you're senior. You have value, and none of the time, none of the seasons that you're in is wasted. God will use all of it. None of it's wasted. Don't take for granted or don't second guess. You went through a rough patch. That's okay. There is some value in even that rough patch. There's a lesson to be learned from it. It's not a failure. You're learning. And so the call to action is to have some grace for yourself, have some grace for others, and take advantage of your learning. Take advantage of your learning. Hold tight to that. Second thing I would tell you to do, and I don't care what your faith is. The language I use is I use faith prayer because I'm a Christian. But there's nothing, however you call it, write down what it is you feel you want to do. Pray about it. Okay. And then when the prayer is answered, write that down too. That's something my mother taught me. Because what happens is we forget just how blessed we are because we'll say we want something. We may write down and ask for it and never chronicle when it's answered. But that's how you increase your confidence in your faith. So those are my two things.
Yeah. That's good. I love that. And how can people connect with you, follow you?
Absolutely. So on Instagram, it's at Treasure You Coaching. And then for my website, it's www.Dionna, Dionna Rojas, ROJAS.com.
Wonderful. This has been such a treat to sit here and, just share this space and time with my dynamic sister. I'm blessed. She knows how much she means. She may question it sometime because I'm not the most touchy feely person. I'm more IQ than EQ, right? But she knows that she really is special to me and to all of us. And I'm really proud of you for never limiting any of us based on your lived experience.
You're gonna have me crying.
You never limited. She always pushed me. She signed me up for other things, and she never hated on me or she always pushed us to go on and be more and do more. And then with Cheerlead, once we went and did what she didn't get a chance to do. And that is not unnoticed. It is not overlooked, and it is not undervalued. Truly means the world to me. And so do you.
Thank you so much. And I'm proud of you as well. I talk about you all the time. I'm proud of you as well.
Thanks. I appreciate that. So you've heard another edition of New Voices. We'll be back next time. Please follow us, like, and share on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. We have more programming to come soon. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for listening to this episode of New Voices. Visit our website at www.newuunlimited.com. That is NEWUunlimited.com. Follow us on social media at NewUunlimited on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And a special thank you to our producer, Jesse Ulrich. If you're looking for self-improvement, join our programs for personal and professional development. New You is a way for diverse talent to imagine, discover, and actualize a 2.0 version of yourself. Bring your future into focus.